Hey everyone, this is Car Ray Rob.
Where I'm Ray.
And I'm Rob.
And we want to welcome you to our podcast. Say hello to my little film.
Hey there, it'll be just a little while till Ray and Rob spit their spittle. Come on, check out of the hospital. So grab some of your best peanut brittle. This will be a darn good transmittal. And say hello to my little film.
All right, everyone, I want to welcome you to another episode of Say Hello to My Little Film. Ray, are you ready to do this?
I'm so ready. It's been too long. I'm ready to do this. And by this, Rob, I mean I'm ready to show you a movie that I love that you've never seen before and see if I can get you to love it too.
Well, that's what we do here, so you know I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, Robin. So for this month, I kind of do a little bit of a callback. I remember last year I showed you A Death of Stalin, and you loved it.
I loved it. If I remember correctly, it was one of my top 3 movies.
Yeah,
of that
I think
year.
so.
I think so.
So what that meant to me was political movies, especially about other countries, you were automatically going to love no matter what. So
I mean, okay, it's a bet to make, and we'll see if you're right.
this time I'm going German.
Ugh.
I'm
We're
going
getting heavier as we go along.
I'm going non-satire,
Uh-huh. Okay.
and I'm going non-comedy, but you're still going to love it.
Oh man! All right, so we are definitely in for a fun movie. Is that what I'm guessing?
No,
No,
not fun.
not fun.
It's got some great qualities. I don't know if you're going to
There's not
say
springtime
fun is
for
one
Hitler
of them.
in here.
No, sir.
Oh man.
No, sir.
All right. Well, heavy German political. Ray, what do you got?
What do you got? What do you got? What do you got?
All right, Rob. Well, what I have for you is a Best Foreign Film Academy Award winner.
Oh, that's a good start.
Yeah, 2006.
Okay.
The Lives of Others is
Ooh.
what it is known as.
I don't think I've seen that.
You can't. I'd break the rules if you did.
We
yes,
stop the episode right now.
it'd be over, and I would have failed at my responsibility of presenting you a new movie. So, yeah. So this is like I said, it's a German movie. It's like a spy thriller, but it's in like the family of maybe like a Rear Window, where somebody's doing
Oh.
like some eavesdropping. It's a Stasi officer who's tasked of kind of overseeing this artist's life and making sure that he's like still like because this takes place in East Germany, so he's got to make sure that he's still in allegiance with the
Sure,
GDR and
before the wall
yeah.
comes down.
absolutely. So he's in charge. Like I said, he's tasked with kind of digging up as much dirt as he can, and kind of staying out of the way becomes a bit of an issue for him, and the movie kind of takes off from there. So
Okay.
I don't know if there's a lot of actors you're going to recognize. I think they're big in Germany from what I hear. I don't want to destroy their
Like
names.
David
but,
Hasselhoff.
yeah, they're the David Hasselhoff.
Is David Hasselhoff in
Of-
this movie?
No, but I
Yeah.
mean they would be shocked if he was because he's so big. They're like, how did you?
Right.
Get
How did
here.
you get David
Yeah.
Hasselhoff?
But so like Ulrich Muhe, Sebastian Koch are two of the leads, and I think I hear they're pretty big over there. But I think they do a great job. The movie is, I don't know, it's compelling to me. I think it's very historically accurate from what I've been told. Like
Okay.
I think like tonally, the feel, visually, it's gonna like you're gonna be in East Germany in the mid '80s. So
Sure.
they do a really good job there. There's really kind of, I don't know, 3 to 4 main characters that I think they do a really good job of kind of feeling out, and you kind of know exactly where they're at and how their lives are intertwining and kind of how their agendas and their needs as humans are kind of interfering with each other, conflicting with the government. Just, it can be complicated in a way I think that's really good.
Okay. All right. Well, that's interesting. Like I said, I did like Death of Stalin, and I do,
Yes.
and in full disclosure, I do like political movies in general.
Yeah,
So it's
right.
like
We joke.
it's in a time when obviously they're a little bit more difficult to watch,
Yeah.
and especially when we're judging from the way I feel like this one's gonna go. But
Yeah.
but I'm always game. I'm always game for it. So I'm gonna be game for it now. This is that part of the podcast where if you have not seen The Lives of Others, we recommend you pause the podcast and check out The Lives of Others.
Totally should.
Absolutely. Eavesdrop all you can, apparently. Apparently it's the thing to do in this movie. So
Or
you
just
go
really just watch it.
Right, or just watch the movie.
Yeah.
That's fine too. Don't creep anybody out. And when you are done doing that, come back and unpause the podcast and find out what I think of this movie.
I hope you like it.
Ray and Rob are currently watching the film. You may be also watching the film. If you're not, then you're listening to me say that Ray and Rob are watching the film. They'll be right back when they're done watching the film.
All right, everybody. Rob and I are back from watching The Lives of Others. Are you back?
Are we back from Germany?
Okay.
Came all
yes.
the way back.
I heard a resounding yes. People are back. So let's continue. So Rob, we got to find out if you like The Lives of Others as much as I do. And I think let's talk about the main character to me,
Okay.
Wiesler.
Weisler. Okay, so Weisler's the main character to you.
Yes.
Interesting. Okay. No,
His picture's on the box. That's
His
why I
picture's
say
on the
that.
box.
And he looks exactly like Lobot from Star Wars.
Oh, I get. Yeah, I
with
definitely
the
can see
headphones
that.
on. And
Yeah,
if you
in his
guys
little-
don't know
in
who
his little
Lobot
room.
is, you need to get up on your Star Wars lore, look him up. But he looks exactly like this dude.
I agree with that.
But let's talk about Wiesler. Maybe the debate about who's the lead character in this movie is something we can touch on later.
Sure, definitely.
I think you start off with this really stone cold type of GD or Stasi officer, right?
Right.
He's this interrogator. He doesn't mess around. He has no problem punching people. And we slowly see that change throughout the movie.
Yeah.
But why does it change? To me, is an interesting question. And I think it could be perceived differently from a lot of people. What do you think?
Well, absolutely. So you're right. In that opening scene, he's in the classroom, and he's it's very, academic. He's very cold, calculating.
Yes.
He even like when one of the students is like, "Oh, that's inhuman." He like marks something down like on the thing. It's like, "Oh God!"
He puts a check mark like that kid is not cool.
Right? Like, man, you definitely do not want that check mark by some Stasi guy.
Yeah.
But then when he goes to the play and he sees Christa, like you see that kind of melt away a little bit. But it's hard to tell because so many people are clearly informants and like
Right.
everybody's clearly paranoid about everybody else.
Right.
But yeah, for me, I feel like you could either say he had some kind of genuine suspicion that just came naturally to him, or it was just lust.
Yes.
And I think either answer could be right, at least at this point in the movie.
I agree. I think I saw a stat that in this time in East Berlin, it was like over 50% of the population were informants. So
Oh, there you
basically, they
go.
just created a culture where everybody was tattling on each other. Like
Yeah.
you don't have to police it because everybody's just so scared for their own lives
Yeah,
that they're just telling
definitely,
on each other. Anyway, but so it could be like, hey, I'm not sure. Let's target them. Like let's just add them to the 50% of the people we're already doing anyway. Maybe that's why he said. That's why Wiesler suggested to start following them and opening the case on Dreyman and Christa.
Right.
But I think you're right. I do think there was some kind of early infatuation with Christa where he's like, I don't, maybe it was her work, maybe it was her look, but he just wanted to be around her and in her presence more.
Yeah. I mean, definitely Dreyman was part of that. He was there. He could see him in that balcony or wherever he was, kind of looking
And maybe
down.
the play was really good. We don't really know.
I mean, that's fair, but clearly lust played a lot of roles in this because when through the telephone of Wiesler to Grubitz to Hemp's
Yes.
like, oh, you think there's something wrong with that guy? Yeah, no, that's good. I like that you think that. Let's do this because I really like her and I want to get him out of the way. And you're like,
Yes.
you don't find that out right away, but it's pretty quickly after
Yeah.
that you find out that like I don't know if they were having an affair before that moment or if it was like
it's hard to tell, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think so. Or it's hard either way. But
right. he's extorting her for sex either way.
Yes. And so they kind of, from the Stasi's point of view, they're like, if we can eliminate Dreyman, her boyfriend, and this really proficient East Berlin writer, then Henf is going to be thrilled with them because Christa will be all his, in his opinion.
Yeah.
So they really want to get Dreyman.
Yeah.
I think this is also where they start to lose Wiesler, because I think Wiesler, maybe he was like attracted to Christa early on, but he is a man of character.
Sure.
You know, I think, what is it that he says about, their purpose with the Stasi is to be the party's shield and sword.
Shield and
right?
sword.
So he wants to be the shield. He wants to protect.
Yeah.
And like when you are raping girls, which is basically what Henf does to Christa throughout the movie,
right?
When they're talking about torturing Dreyman for no real good reason, like I don't think Wiesler relates to that. He's like, that's not what the shield feels like to me. And I think he starts to lose faith in the party at that point.
Yeah, I think you're right, and it's moments like that clearly when when you start losing faith in why you're doing a thing is when you become open to other ideas, and which is kind of where he finds himself. But it's interesting the lengths that they go to, to bug the apartment. They kind of like go through this like crazy process to bug from like ceiling to floor, every room.
Yes.
This apartment, and it just kind of goes to the level of paranoia and control that the Stasi was really going for at this time. The opening of the movie, there's like the text at the beginning of the movie, and like they were said like the goal is to know everything,
right?
And the amount of information that they were able to collect is really astonishing. Yeah,
and scary. And from everything I've seen about the movie, and obviously did not live there at that time, but I hear it's extremely accurate. From everything about the movie, visually, cosmetically, the vehicles, and the tone of what it was like to live there, supposedly is very accurate.
Yeah.
And so it's not made up. They're not like overdoing it for the movie. Like that's what it was like.
Sure.
And with that bugging scene when they bug Dreyman's house, and it's like so proficient the way they're doing it. But I think the most interesting part is when the neighbor
catches them.
Neighbor catches them.
Yeah.
And then they see that the neighbor sees them.
Right.
And just that little intimidation they do to her, like knock on the door and just say, mention her daughter's name, and just like she knows what'll happen to them if she says anything.
Right. Well, exactly, and even later in the movie when he can't tie his tie, and he invites her in, and like that scene was really good. Where like, can you keep a secret? Yes, of course. And then she just like leaves, and he's like,
of course.
What was that?
And she knows the house is bugged, so she knows anything she says in there is being heard and putting her in danger.
Was she saying that to him or them?
Right. Exactly.
So, absolutely. There's a lot of that in this movie where it's like kind of that double layer of what are the motivations of what you're saying when you're saying it.
I like this. I love to see like Wiesler's like turn throughout the movie. Like there's a lot of those just little moments where he doesn't properly dictate what they're doing.
Yeah.
He steals one of Dreyman's books, maybe Western literature books, and starts to read it and looks really happy.
Yeah.
After Jurska dies, who's basically like the role model for Dreyman, and remember Dreyman, or I might say his name different every time, plays the piano.
Yeah.
And then Wiesler just like, it brings him to tears. Like, just really, you can just see him slowly again shift his allegiance to Team Dreyman and not Team Stasi. And I don't know. I think it's really well done. I like how that progresses through the movie.
Yeah, because he is sent to spy on Dreyman, he kind of exposes him to an entire world of artists and writers, really, through Dreyman.
Yeah,
because they're all in the
Hauser is
apartment.
another character in the movie is very anti-Stasi and anti this GDR.
Right, and it's they control art so heavily in a fascist kind of in a fascist time because of the feelings it can make you feel,
right?
And so
the questions it can make you ask,
right? Exactly. The questions that it makes you ask. So they control what you see and hear. So somebody like Wiesler probably hasn't been exposed
Right.
to a lot of Western art or
Yeah.
culture or books or things like that, and it kind of goes to show like that expansion of ideas
Yeah.
when you are exposed to things like that, and why societies like this
Can
try
thrive.
to right
Yeah.
try to control what you intake.
Exactly. So one of my favorite little scenes with Weisler, I think when you really know he's starting to get to turn around, because there's a part of me that's like, is Weisler changing and like growing throughout the movie, or is he just getting too deep with Drayman? Like he let one thing pass, then he let a second thing pass, and now he can't go back, and so he has to keep covering up for him.
Yeah.
Did you ever feel that?
Well, definitely when there was that one time when in the movie they start to suspect that the apartment is bugged, and they set up the whole thing of
Right.
like getting Hauser like across. Hauser like
They're
across
testing
the line,
to see if the house is bugged.
and then they get across.
Yeah.
So he's like, "Oh, maybe I'm not." But it's the reason that their plan went through is because Weisler didn't report it.
Right.
And he's like, "Just this one time."
Right.
So
But
that makes me think that like, okay, I'm doing it this once, but I'm going to not do it next time. But then he does it next time.
He does.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, he does. But remember, he actually is going to turn him in, and then he goes to Grubnitz,
Right.
and then
That's
Grubnitz is
true.
like,
That's true.
Grubnitz tells him like how much they're going to torture him,
Right.
if then they get some good stuff on him, and then he kind of changes
okay,
his
so
mind.
that's interesting. Do you think that he did it because of how much they would torture him, or was it because of the line where he was talking about it's how when they do this to these types of people, they don't ever create anything ever again because they're too scared.
Yeah.
So do you think that Weisler was put off by the amount of torture, or the fact that there's the possibility that Dreyman might never create again?
Yeah, I think the end result. I just think like what they were going to put Dreyman through, he was like, I don't really want to do that to this guy yet, you know. So yeah, I do agree. Well, and because the other thing to me, like I guess the scene that always kind of hooks me up with Weisler is like when he's going back to his house, maybe before he bangs a prostitute. I'm not sure.
Right.
To each his own. But like, remember the little kid comes in the elevator with him, and he's like, "Are you a Stasi member?" And he's like, "Whatever."
Yeah.
And then he's like, "Because my dad says they all suck."
Right.
And he wants to tell the kid, like, his natural reaction is, "What's your father's name?"
Your father's name?
But he's like, "What's your balls?
What's your balls name?"
He's like,
"Don't ever ask a kid that.
Yeah.
That's inappropriate."
It was fine back then, but in that country. But yeah. So so for me, like the fact that he didn't like, he's not just being nice to Drayman. He's being nice to other people. He's letting the dad slide there, and he's,
Right.
So I give him the benefit of the doubt. I think his change is legitimate. At that point, it's not self-centered. It's not just because he got himself in too deep. He is changing.
Yeah. But you mentioned Jerska, the
Yeah.
director who ends up hanging himself, and it's a very interesting kind of hook with that, because the whole idea of Drayman writing the piece for Der Spiegel is talking about the suicide rates,
Right.
which it's like something you would never even really like, I guess, think about in this context, because everything just seems so bad,
Right.
but it's this idea of like the suppression of the amount of suicides, simply to show like how bad things are
Right.
on that side of the wall. And I guess, while it is a big thing, it also seems like such a small thing, like in comparison. But it just goes to show how, like, again, the control of information.
Yeah.
Like, and how much they want to control the information coming out of that side, the eastern side of the wall.
Well, I think it's telling, for the movie starts off, and as you already mentioned, like the GDR's like slogan was, "We want to know everything," but they don't keep track of this thing. Well, why would this be something you don't keep track of? It must be something that like keeping track of this makes us look very bad, so let's totally ignore it. Let's not, So I think them not keeping track of suicides, which is what this whole story that Drayman wrote was about, is very telling in and of itself, because this is a political party about information.
Sure.
So I just feel like them ignoring that info, that statistic, is telling on themselves.
Absolutely.
Because obviously it takes a great deal of emotional despair to perform that act.
Yeah.
And the fact that I don't know if they ever say what the numbers were,
I don't.
but it was like second in the world.
Yeah.
So it was, and
It was
it's
just
high.
behind Hungary or something.
Yeah,
like that.
just behind Hungary. So it was very high. So obviously it's something that that they're contributing, or at least the movie's implying that it's it's because the government was so bad that it's forcing people to do this.
Yeah, and it's also kind of I'll say funny, but maybe I don't know. I don't know if that's the
Darkly
correct
funny?
word. Darkly funny, I guess. How many like a conspiracy to write an article?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like all this is writing an article for a magazine, and the conspiracy behind it and the intricacy of it. Bringing in the special typewriter, and so that they can't match the typeface,
Yep.
using red ink. You're doing all of these things just to write an article. It's crazy the lengths that you would have to go to for something that for you and me just feels so simple.
Yeah, freedom of speech and freedom of press
Right.
is something that's supposed to be not revolutionary, but
right.
Sometimes it feels like it is, and in this movie it certainly is.
Definitely.
So it's hard. But, I guess when we talk about suicide, let's talk about Christa.
Yeah.
Because
she's kind of the central. She is I think the low key central figure of this story.
Yeah.
In so many ways, but I wouldn't call her the main character.
No, she isn't. She's a lot in the background, but you're right. She's very central. I think that's kind of why the movie's called The Lives of Others. It's like how the lives of others are so intertwined, even if they're not directly related. But yeah, because she's, in our hypothesis, the one that hooks up Wiesler with them.
Right.
She connects them to Hempf, which is because she's connected to Hempf through him forcing himself on her.
Right, extorting her.
Yeah,
for
extorting her drug problem.
Right.
That forces Grubnitz and Wiesler to go after Dreyman. And so it's like, yeah, she is very central. She connects everything. And unfortunately, she has a drug problem. And they're going to use that against her.
Yeah.
And they do.
Yeah,
they do.
Yeah. But she does. It's so sad because she does choose Dreyman.
Right.
Like he makes the kind of. It's a great attack by ally speech because I think it's a great attack by ally scene because I think it's the attack by ally scene for both characters.
Right.
Like both characters kind of get attacked in this scene for their shortcomings, and their weakness and need. But in the end, it is actually a really beautiful part because like she leaves, it's where she comes face to face with Wiesler, which is such an interesting scene with her in the little bar.
Yeah.
And I love the reveal of her going back.
Right.
Where he goes the next morning
and reads
the report and reads that she came back. Like that was just such a great use of the hook of the movie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like to reveal information. Like that was really beautiful.
And I thought it was greatly acted because Wiesler is so just bland. He's just not emotional. And you can see when he reads that and he sees that at work, like what he did in the bar, like interjecting himself into their lives, their secret lives of the others. But it's an inside joke. But like that it worked. You know what I mean? So because I kind of feel like when I watch this, like it's like Wiesler has to live by those documentarian roles. Like like if you worked for like National Geographic and you are following a baby deer and a lion's about to eat that deer, you have to let the lion eat the deer. Like that is documentarian, like natural documentarians. Like that's their number one rule is don't interfere with nature.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what Wiesler's number one rule should be. But in this case, he can't do it.
Yeah. Well, and again, it kind of goes back to that first question we asked, why did he do it in the first place? Is it suspicion or lust? And I think, ultimately, by this point, I do think it's neither. I think at this point there is a respect for her as a person and as an artist because I do think that change within him has started to stir.
Yeah, and I do think he is legitimately disgusted by Hempf. And because remember when Hempf is dropping Christa off at home, like Wiesler's like, yeah, enough of this, and he starts ringing, like he uses like their technology to like ring Dreyman's doorbell enough times where Dreyman like goes out basically and sees Christa leave that car.
Yeah. And
so it's again, he had to interfere a little bit because he's like, this dude's so disgusting. You know what I mean? Which Hempf is, the character is. So, but anyway, just to finish up with Christa though, like we said, like she changes and she dumps Hempf. Like she knows it's going to ruin her life. It's going to ruin her career.
Yeah.
She chooses Dreyman, but at the end of the day, when Dreyman wants revenge, he's going to win because they're going to find a reason to arrest her. Hempf.
Yeah.
What I'm saying.
You said Drayman wants revenge.
Sorry, Hemph wants
He
revenge. Thank
should.
you.
That's the sequel.
Yeah. Well, Drayman gets his revenge
Somewhat,
too. Yeah.
yeah.
But Hemph wants revenge for being left by Krista.
Right.
He's like, you like, and which is weird because like you're forcing yourself on her, and she's like, she dumped me. I'm really bummed out that she dumped me. Like, yeah, you're horrible.
Yeah. She never liked you, dude.
Yeah.
It's like when you think that like the stripper's really into you.
Right.
Like...
Yeah. Get a clue. Yeah. Anyway, so they arrest Krista and put her in the ultimate position where, where she has to kind of rat out Drayman.
Yeah.
Which is really where the third act is, like the real suspense of the movie.
Yeah. It is a roller coaster. I will say that third act with Krista is a roller coaster because they bring her in for the drugs. She turns Drayman, which she kind of laughs when because it's almost like that maniacal laugh, not because she's evil, but because she realized she's been put in the position that the question that she had asked Wiesler in that bar, is it, would I be the person to or where is it? Oh, would she hurt someone who loves her above all else?
Right.
Like, that was her line to him about, when he says that she was good, and they're talking about this fictitious person in framing as a fictitious person in his mind. And she asked, would she hurt someone who loves her above all else? So that question, I'm sure, was in her mind at that point, because it was obviously yes, unfortunately,
Yeah.
because yes, she did. She tried to turn him in, and then they go to his apartment, and it's nothing.
Yeah. Well, they don't know. To Chris's credit, she knew where the typewriter was hidden, but she didn't say
first.
that. Yeah.
Right. But then, and then they bring her back, or they come back to her and have Wiesler interrogate her.
Right. Which is very interesting little scene, because that they recognize each other.
Right. But this part was a little interesting to me. Like, so it was, so is he trying to get her to tell him legitimately? What do you think?
I think his plan was because I don't think that Wiesler knew exactly where the typewriter was. Like, he could only listen.
Right.
So he knew it was being hidden, but I don't think he could pinpoint where. So I think he was trying to get Krista to tell him where it was, so that he could go get it. So I did think he wanted her to rat out Drayman, knowing he was going to try to save the day.
But I will say, as far as plans go at the end, I did find this part interesting, because if that was his thing, where it was like, okay, I want you to tell me where it is, and he goes and gets it, which he does, and then when they come back to find it, it's gone. What did he think that they would do to her? Because, you know what I mean? Because in their mind, she lied to them.
Right.
And in the Stasi's mind, she lied to us.
Right.
So she's not a good informant. I'm going to throw her back in jail. I'm, whatever. You know what I mean? So it's I think in his mind, maybe he thought, okay, well, if his typewriter's gone, they'll just be like, oh, it was a bad bum tip, whatever. We'll just leave it alone. I don't think they would have left it alone.
Probably not. Yeah.
But, I mean, it doesn't matter anyway, because she throws herself in front of a truck.
Yeah, unfortunately. And that's, two things.
Heartbreak.
Yeah, it is sad, because, I don't think she, when they start going, because it's hidden under some floorboards, she sees that they're about to pull up the floorboards, and she leaves. So I don't think she ever saw that Wiesler had already removed it.
Right.
So, it is heartbreaking that she then goes and kills herself, because she feels so guilty, but she didn't know what other choice she had at that moment. And that's, that's what we talk about, suicide rate, right? And so the movie ends with a compelling suicide, because that's what this government does.
Right.
That's what it was doing to thousands probably of people, where they was just driving to this level of insanity.
Well, yeah. Well, and it was also the alternative. It's I could end up in a freaking gulag, or I could kill myself. So a lot of people just killed themselves.
Now, I will tell you, I love this movie. The thing that I hate about this movie, speaking of the scenes that we're talking about, is I hate that they show Wiesler get the typewriter. Because that should be such a suspenseful moment when they're digging up that floorboard, and we know Krista ratted out Drayman. We should all be like, golly, I'm kind of mad at you right now.
That's a good note.
You know what I mean? But and Drayman learns that Wiesler does it through he uses the red ink.
Years later, after the walls come down, and they kind of set up all this system for people to be able to go and research themselves, the information that the Stasi had on them. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and they see the red thumbprint.
Yeah, we see the red thumbprint. So that's all we needed to know. That we would have. I think when you see the typewriter was gone, we probably would have assumed that Weisler had somehow got it.
Right.
Then the red thumbprint, the red inked thumbprint would have confirmed that suspicion for us.
Right.
We don't need to see that Weisler took it. I just hate that they do that. I think it gives away such a like pivotal emotional moment.
Yeah. No, I could agree with that. Yeah, I think that would have been a better.
And he tells Krista too, like his dying words to Krista was, "I got the typewriter."
Right, right. Like, why did you do it? I got the typewriter.
It's all good. Yeah. So
I still don't think it would have been good for her, but I get where.
No,
he's coming from.
I agree. I agree. He might have just been like, "You're screwed anyway," but the only way we can save myself and Dreyman is this plan. So and that's another thing. Like, we're just so wrapped up in each other's lives that I can only save a couple of them. I don't know.
Yeah.
There was maybe no good choice at that point.
Yeah. Well, and the whole central theme, I think, for Weisler is, are you a good man?
Right.
That kind of comes up a couple times. In that scene with Krista in the bar.
Yeah.
Are you a good man? Like,
Right.
Whatever. And
The little kid in the elevator.
little
asked
kid
him.
in the elevator, right? And then like even the piece, which is the piece that he plays,
Sonata
is-
of a Good Man?
Yeah, Sonata of a Good Man. Like
Yeah.
that kind of comes through all the way, and the dedication of the book
Right.
in the end, kind of the
Yeah.
same thing. Like, or the book that is called
Sonata of
Sonata
a
of
Good
a Good
Man.
Man. Yeah, so it comes back around again. And I find it's an interesting journey for him because I don't in the beginning, obviously it's not cut and dry, and I think, like you said, kind of the transformation is interesting because he comes off as kind of a creepy character at first.
Yeah.
Like you said, he kind of sets
Very
up this
cold and
room, right? He
calculated.
sets up this room which is very dystopian.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Very different even from the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
I feel like the scenes and the way it's shot in his little listening bunker just feels so different from anything else in the movie.
Yeah.
Almost sci-fi in
Yeah.
some regards.
Well, and actually to touch on that, I do think that they picked the date of this movie to be 1984 for that dystopian reason.
That makes
I think
sense,
it's
yeah.
a connection to George Orwell's 1984.
Yeah.
And it really, it's not a great year because they do so many time jumps at the end. It seems
Yeah.
weird because they have to get to 93.
Right.
But
Yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
fair. But he even goes through the process of drawing the apartment on the floor, and
Right.
there's a lot of intricacies about this guy that come off as creepy.
Yeah.
And the slow unfold, like you were kind of talking about, with all these different things, the music and the book and all, and just seeing him change, I think is a really compelling journey.
yeah.
And like you said, having that kind of central theme of being a good man. But I think, because they put so much work into that, kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier, like, who is the main character of this movie?
Right.
Is it Weisler? Is it Dreyman? What do you think?
That's tough. I guess I naturally think it's Weisler.
Okay.
Because I think there's the most change in the character, and that's kind of what I'm most compelled to. Though I think we spend the most time with Dreyman.
Yeah.
And it's his girlfriend, and it's his article that's trying to get written. So,
Right.
So it is a tough question. And it's, do they ever share a scene? I guess they
And
technically
I was going to
share
bring
a
that up.
scene.
Nope. They don't really know.
Yeah.
They're never technically on screen together.
True. Oh yeah, in the same shot. Yeah.
Yeah, like they're kind of in the same scene, but in maybe positioned differently. So
Right.
like when Krista is hit by the truck, obviously
Oh yeah.
Weisler was there, but he had kind of backed away by the point where all of them were coming out of the apartment. When he finds out, those years later about Weisler, he goes to track him down, finds out he's a postman,
Yeah.
but like kind of follows him in the car, but never really gets out and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, never
Yeah.
really
He
go-
can't do it. He can't.
Yeah,
So I guess it would be weird to be like, hey man, thanks for not ratting me out to the government.
right. So, instead he writes the book.
Yeah.
So it is interesting to have these two characters, whichever one you think as a viewer is the main character,
Yeah.
but to never truly have them on screen together sharing a scene. A word never passes between them.
Right. And so, I mean, we did spend a lot of time talking about Weisler. Did you like Drayman's story? This artist who kind of has writer's block, but then is either compelled to do by duty or creativity to kind of start rewriting again based on his experiences. How'd you think his story went?
I think his motivations in the beginning are interesting because I think as an artist, okay, so like clearly he doesn't buy into this kind of fascist socialist kind of government, but he's just going along to get along. And I don't even necessarily know if that's true, in the beginning. Sometimes it seems like he maybe actually does kind of, buy into it, at least to a certain degree, because especially when they're first bugging the apartment, he says all the right things.
Yeah, he always says the right
things. And he doesn't know it's being bugged, so he's saying these things naturally, about Hauser.
Or habit,
like Hauser, Hauser's, had his travel visa revoked, or whatever.
Right.
It's like, well, what did he expect? Like, when he talks like that, obviously that's going to happen. Like, so it's like, it's interesting because it's, obviously that could just be very matter of fact, knowing the situation that he lives in, but they could also be a bit of the, buying into the system as well, which I do think kind of goes into that scene, the attack by allies scene with Christa that I mentioned earlier, because she's like, we need this system, you know what I mean? We need this system to survive, or, whatever.
Yeah.
But I think for Dreyman, Christa being his significant other does help his story have maybe a little bit more of an emotional bent than Wiesler's does.
Yeah.
Just because, being the voyeur as opposed to being the voyeur. So, yes, obviously his storyline is very compelling in that regard because you have that interpersonal relationship of Christa and what, her betrayal ultimately is to him.
Right.
Obviously, Wiesler buys into it in the beginning too, the system, so you kind of you hold that against him. Yeah. But it's almost like you were talking about him, being, we talked about him being a good man, and one of the scenes that kind of is funny is when, they're at lunch and Grubitz is like walking through and he like sits down at his table. Like, oh, management sits over there, and he's like, socialism has to start somewhere. Yeah. It's like I almost died out laughing. I was like, is that supposed to be funny? Because that was hilarious.
Yeah, because Wiesler is so dry.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
But it was just, well, I'm like, at least you're trying to abide by this, ideal that you
starts
claim
in the
to
cafeteria.
believe. Right, it starts in the cafeteria.
Well, and a funny thing about that, did you notice, like, the guy sitting next to them tells a
right,
joke,
yeah,
and then Grubitz plays this kind of evil trick on him where he's kind of like making him feel,
turn you in or whatever,
turn him in, ruin his career, and then he's like, I'm just kidding,
yeah,
I can take a joke. But at the end of the movie, when Wiesler is, because Wiesler gets demoted by Grubitz for failing for failing to kind of pin this stuff down on Dreyman, but that dude is the guy that's working the mailroom. That joke guy is working with Wiesler. That. Yeah, you noticed that.
Yeah.
Subtle little thing, but yeah.
So he did actually.
Grubitz did ruin his career.
Grubitz is a
for
piece
a joke.
Of crap.
Yeah.
He is a piece of crap. Yeah, and I mean, it's like I said, for being part of a terrible system. Obviously, by the end, Wiesler and proves himself to be a good man, and Dreyman does realize that as well. So I think both arcs are equally compelling. I just think in different ways.
Yeah, they're so interconnected, but like you said, they never connect, which is very weird.
Yeah.
So one other theme that I always kind of feel really strong and think about when I watch this movie is just like is art, and how these fascist governments are so scared by it.
Oh yeah.
Is art its greatest enemy? Is it the thing it fears the most? Is it the thing, I don't know how to phrase it, but like, is it the thing that can compel the people against the government the most? Like, I just feel like the movie's kind of really touching on that. What do you think the movie's saying about that, or what did the GDR fear?
I mean, I completely agree. I mean, fascist governments typically have to control art in that way.
Yeah.
Where they either have very much state-sanctioned art. The Nazis had that. Goebbels understood that. With it was filmmakers, composers, things of that nature, actors, actresses, whatever, that were very much part of the party.
Right.
But then they were also very controlling about what people didn't see, and they were obviously like that in this as well. Like I kind of touched on that earlier, and yeah, it is because it can really spark something.
Right.
Absolutely. Pieces of art, music, literature, whatever, film can absolutely spark a revolution. So I think
Wiesler is
dangerous.
Wiesler is
Art
subject
is
to.
dangerous. It's supposed to be, at least.
Yeah, good artist. Yeah, I think Wiesler, he steals the Brecht book from Drayman's
Right.
house, and that you can tell moves him. And we mentioned earlier when he's listening to music, he gets teared up, and I think there's that great quote. I think Drayman says it. That Lenin quote about Beethoven's a passionate.
Oh, if I kept
keep
listening, I
won't finish the revolution. So I kind of feel like that's what the movie's saying. That's what the government fears, is people getting to that point where they won't stay in line if they hear this or they think that. So we have to control that, and they have to control artists. I think they even mentioned the movie, like Drayman was the only artist that they weren't really bugging at one point.
Well, I mean, like you kind of like even Drayman says, like somebody like Hauser, obviously, like he's super, very vocal. I mean, they were at the party, or the other director who ended up directing the play when Jerska's been blacklisted or whatever. He's like, everyone knows you're with the Stasi. You know what I mean? Like he's very much open about that kind of thing, and he's even said, I think he tells Drayman, like, if you don't take a stand, you're not human. Things like that. So he's obviously very much more forceful in his opinions, his art, I'm sure. I think obviously somebody like Hauser would 100% be under surveillance.
Oh yeah,
and which he realizes obviously eventually that he is.
He's got Rolf following him.
Right, Rolf. Like that kind of thing was really funny. It's my own personal like Stasi agent. His name's Rolf.
Good old Rolf.
That probably is his name or something.
Yeah, man. I love the name Rolf. Rolf's a great name, but I love a lot of things about this movie. Rolf is just one of them. But what I want to find out, Rob, is did you love this movie? So you got to tell us, what did you think about The Lives of Others?
Well, you've thrown me into the political fire yet
sure
again.
Did.
Obviously, and Death to Stalin was a home run for me, and The Lives of Others was also a home run for me. Yeah, I really did enjoy this movie. It is hard though, again, with our political time that we live in, there are definitely things about a movie like this that, hit closer to home than you'd like.
I hope we're not living like this soon. But
there's a lot of things happening right now that, inch us closer to things that we don't necessarily want to be a part of. And, we hope we never will have to be. But, movies like this, hopefully, ACT, as we mentioned, is talking about art in general.
Exactly.
Would be something that would be a deterrent for something like that, and be like, look, like this is bad, and we should not live like this. But it also kind of goes to show, it was a great examination of humanity on both sides of a line.
Yeah.
And, somebody like Wiesler, like I said before, early in the movie, knowing he's part of this system, willingly part of this system the way that he is, you might hold that against him in a way that you're not willing to give him the benefit of the doubt, but he allows himself to grow, and you as an audience member need to, go grow with him in that regard, and find out that despite what he was doing, he did have the capacity for good. He can't change what he's done, but he's trying to change what he does going forward. So, you hope for that, for most people.
Yeah.
Obviously with Drayman, he is more of a good person up in the front. He's more kind of, as I say, kind of going along to get along. But ultimately, in the end, he takes the stand that he needs to take. And it seems like, again, it seems small. Writing an article, it seems small, but it clearly it shook mountains.
Exactly,
because it caused a big uproar that that scared the Stasi in the way that it did. But I understand completely why this movie won Best Foreign Language Film. I'm so glad that you showed it. I'm a big fan. I did realize, I wanted to mention it. Sebastian Koch.
I think so.
The actor, he's actually in another movie that I really love that actually came out the exact same year. I had to look it up real fast. He was in Black Book, which is a Paul Verhoeven film. I don't know if you've ever seen Black Book. It is a fantastic movie. So that's something to keep in mind. But it's a Paul Verhoeven film that he's in that's really great. So fantastic performances across the board. Lives of Others was fantastic.
Excellent.
All right, Ray. I really loved The Lives of Others, so it was a great recommendation from you. So we're gonna, sometimes you pick out good movies, so I got to find out. Have you seen anything else lately that I should watch?
I think so. I love docs, So I
I
did
do
check
know
out. There
that.
was a season 2 of it's called Light and Magic on Disney Plus, which is kind of like documenting the history of ILM.
ILM.
It's funny.
IOL.
They're onto the
Instant on lighting.
they're onto the prequels, and it's pretty funny because they're like, they're kind of being honest. Like, yeah, we were working on Jar Jar, and it was very revolutionary, but also like. We're like, are we sure this is what we want to do?
It's like Oppenheimer building the bomb. They didn't know what they were doing at first, and then
once they realized it was too
like,
late.
It was too late.
We can't release this to the world. But oh shoot, I'm drawing a blank on who plays Jar Jar.
Ooh.
He's in it quite a bit.
Is he?
And
poor guy.
kind of talks about how the world made his life miserable for playing a character that nobody liked.
It's
but
fair, and it's not his fault. It's not his fault.
Really not. He did exactly what he was directed to do, but not purposefully. But this is May, and in May 4th, they released. Disney Plus releases a lot of Star Wars stuff, and one thing they release every year on May 4th is the last couple years they've been doing this like they had Tales of the Jedi, I think was a couple years ago.
Oh yeah.
And last year they did Tales of the Sith.
Mm-hmm.
And this year they did Tales of the Underworld, and this is very Dave Filoni kind of expanding on what he does, the characters he's created.
Sure.
So there's a couple characters from like Clone Wars, Asajj Ventress, and Cad Bane. Cad Bane, I think, he was that cowboy bad guy in the Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So they expand on them a little bit, and they do a good job. Like I like the Dave Filoni universe when it in the animated universe. Like I think he does a good job expanding there, living there. When he tries to bring everything to live action, there's been middling results.
Fair enough.
Which is unfortunate because I do care for those characters in animation. They bring to live action. They don't always do them the best justice in the world, but it's cool. It's a nice little expansion. But I really liked it too. I want to tell you because I feel like with that cowboy character, Cad Bane, like his episode like finale, it's kind of like a High Noon, the movie we talked about last year, where it's kind of like this counting clock setting up this duel between the sheriff and the guy coming to town who's Cad Bane. So it was kind of cool that way. It felt very High Noony, like cool. Very purposefully. I think they did a little town committee trying to convince the town to help. They say no, like all that stuff. So cool. And then one movie we watched together, we went to the theater, which is a lot rarer experience than it used to be.
That's true.
But we went and saw Thunderbolts.
Thunderbolts.
MCU's newest movie, and I really liked it.
Yeah, I did too. I was actually pleasantly surprised how much I liked it because I was not sold when they first announced that movie.
I thought it was going to be fun, and the odd thing is the movie's less fun than I thought it would be, but in a really good way.
Right, yeah.
It's, not going to go into spoilers much, but it's the MCU with something to say, which feels like that hasn't really happened in a long time.
Definitely.
Like there are heavy themes that this movie is purposely touching on, exploring, and diving deep with, and I really appreciated that, and I think they do it really well. They handle it very well.
Yeah, it really centering the movie on trauma and like how you deal with trauma and like what that trauma, the ripple effects from it. Yeah,
depression. There's bipolarness, obviously,
and
too.
just the world around you. I think was super good.
And that support, the support to, potentially help fight those challenges.
Right. And being the anti-Avengers, I think, really worked for them.
The
anti-new Avengers.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was a pleasant surprise. I've been I love the MCU. I've kind of been off the MCU a little bit recently, keeping up, but, not as invested into it. And this kind of helps, I think, set me on the right track.
Definitely.
What about you? What have you been watching? You got any recommendations for me?
I do, actually. I have a few that I recommend. So we watched The Residence.
Yes,
on
that's
Netflix.
That's with the girl from Orange is the New
Uzo
Black.
Aduba. Yep, it's crazy eyes from Orange is the New Black.
That's
Uzo Aduba, but she is really fantastic. It is like a whodunit, a Knives Out, Agatha Christie kind of thing. So they're making a million of those these days. I feel like, but. And
Only
they're
murders
not all,
in the building.
Right, and they're not necessarily all worthwhile. This one I think is really fun. It's really it's quick-paced in its humor. It's quick-paced in just the way that the show is kind of put together. And it has an amazing supporting cast. Giancarlo Esposito is in it. Randall Park, who is kind of like the low-key hero of the show.
I love Randall Park.
Yeah, and he plays her partner, who is a reluctant partner on both sides. but he's the straight man, and he always
Cool.
plays like the greatest straight man. So he's really good in it. Jason Lee is in it,
Okay.
and as he just kind of popped up. It's like, whoa, Jason Lee is
Hey,
in this?
Jason.
Holy crap!
Long time no see.
Right? Bronson Pinchot is in it. I think it's really good. It's all kind of like I said, it's political in nature too, so it kind of has a little bit of that West Wing kind of feel to it, but more comedic.
Huge West Wing fan over here.
Right. Well, I thought that would get interest you. So yeah, but I highly recommend it. It on the surface, it might be just one that you might be like, I don't know, like I've seen this 100 times already, but I definitely think it's worth your time. Something else that I watched recently was Black Bag, which is the new Steven Soderbergh film with Michael Fassbender and Cate Blanchett, and that one's really interesting because it's a spy movie, but it doesn't necessarily. It is. I mean, it is tight. It is a 90-minute spy movie.
I like it when they're tight.
And I mean, in this one, there is no fat on this movie whatsoever.
Cool.
But it doesn't feel like it missed a beat, as far as that type of movie would go, and the story. It doesn't feel like it's missing anything because it's kind of like somebody's setting somebody up, and it's kind of this web of intrigue and like who's setting it. I highly recommend it, but it's not necessarily super action oriented. So I know some people kind of have like middling reviews for it, and I think that might be also part of why, because it's not like a super actiony movie.
Yeah.
It's just a very well acted, low key spy movie.
Gotta appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I watched Love Hurts
Sure does.
with Kehi Kwan, and it was good. It was fine. Like, it's a movie that I think it is what it is, and it's fun for the time you watch it, and I don't know if you'll revisit it.
Yeah.
But it is a low-key Goonies reunion because Sean Astin is in it.
Cool.
So that is kind of fun.
I feel like Kehi Kwan's like really making up for lost time in the acting world.
He really is, and you gotta feel good for him in
Strike
that
when the
regard.
iron's
Right?
hot.
Yeah, because I mean, it to have that kind of reception after coming back to acting after so long,
Yeah.
I think is just it's really great for him, and he is good. He's good in it. Like I said, it's not. Is it a great movie? No. It's actually like horribly reviewed critic wise, if I think, but the audience score is pretty good on Rotten Tomatoes. But
They don't take into account just having fun watching a movie.
sometimes they don't, and that is definitely a problem when it comes to that. But yeah, I think the supporting cast is pretty good. Like I said, it's an interesting little story. Stylistically, it's interesting, like there, but it's again like it's not necessarily something that I see myself revisiting again.
All right, Rob. Well, we are wrapping up our conversation on the lives of others. But guess what? There have been people listening in to this entire conversation.
Oh man,
And if these
this has not just been me and you.
No, I don't think so.
Oh,
I think
God.
that our lines have been tapped,
Sadly, I think it may have just
and
been.
those people need to be like Wiesler and do some nice things for us.
That'd be nice.
And they could do some things really easily. Like all they have to really do, if you think about it, is like the podcast,
Oh.
subscribe to the podcast if they
That'd be
haven't
good.
already, leave us a 5-star review. If you leave us a 5-star review, we will read it live on air, whatever it is someday. Email us at carbayrob@gmail.com if you want to talk to us, or reach out to us on Blue Sky. We'd love that.
Absolutely. If there is a comment section on whatever platform you are on, by all means, let us know what you thought of the lives of others. And as always, recommend a movie that Ray and I might need to check out. We will be back next week with a brand new episode of Hello Movies, My Old Friend.
The blue one.
The blue one. And we will be watching the best of the best.
Oh, that is going to be a throwback.
It is. I cannot even remember the last time I saw that movie. We will be back then in 2 weeks, and it will be back to my episode of Say Hello to My Little Film.
Yep. Better have a good one ready to go.
I think I do, and it's going to be a very special month to do it, so I'm going to leave you with that.
Okay.
But everybody is not going to want to miss it. Until then, this is Car Ray Rob.
Where I'm Ray.
And I'm Rob. And remember, be defined by the films you love, not the ones you hate.
Hey there, it'll be just a little while till Ray and check out of the hospital. So grab some of your best peanut brittle. This will be a darn good transmittal. And say hello to my little film.
Hey everyone, Rob here. I want to give you a little sneak peek of what my June episode of Say Hello is going to be. It's going to be Pride Month in these parts, so I wanted to do something for the season, and I'm going to be showing Ray the 1999 romantic comedy, But I'm a Cheerleader. It's a great movie. It's very nostalgic for me. Of that time, stars Natasha Lyonne, all big fans of hers around these parts. Clea Duvall, RuPaul, Kathy Moriarty. It's just a non-stop killer cast. It's a fun little indie comedy that everybody should see. So you should do that and join us for our next episode to see if Ray enjoys it as much as I do.